Hi everyone, welcome to Emma, a true infidelity story. I'm excited to share a new story with you. It was 190 and 49 am. I remember the exact time because my phone lit up on the nightstand, just as Lucas' low growl pulled me from a dreamless sleep. First, I thought it was thunder. The room was unusually cold, and the wind howled faintly outside. But when I sat up, there was Lucas, my scruffy Labrador retriever, standing rigid on the bed, ears pinned back, his body angled toward the door. His growl wasn't playful or uncertain. It was sharp, guttural, and full of warning. "Lucas, what's wrong?" I whispered, my voice cracking with the dryness of sleep. He didn't move, didn't even glance at me. His nose flared as if he'd picked up a scent. And his tail, normally wagging at the slightest sound of my voice, stayed completely still. That's when I noticed something strange. The hallway light, which I always left on, was off. My heart skipped a beat. I could feel it pounding in my C*******T, a dull thud echoing in my ears. I reached for my phone, fumbling in the dark, and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the shadows, landing on the door, muffling just the faint creak of the old house. Settling. Lucas barked suddenly, a sharp, startling sound that made me jump. "Show!" I hissed, clutching his fur. But he pulled away, leaping off the bed and rushing to the door. His paws scratched against the hardwood as he skidded to a stop, nose pressed to the crack at the bottom. "Lucas, come back here." I pleaded, my voice trembling. But he wasn't listening. He barked again, more ferociously this time, and then growled so deeply it sent chills down my spine. Something was out there. I couldn't see it, but Lucas knew with shaking hands. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the bed, something my dad had insisted on when I moved into this old house alone. "Better safe than sorry," he'd said. Now I clung to it like it was the only thing standing between me and whatever Lucas was sensing. I took a deep breath and forced myself to stand, my legs feeling like jelly beneath me. Lucas, sparking, turned into a whine like he was torn between warning me and begging me to follow him. My fingers tightened around the bat as I stepped closer to the door, flashlight trembling in my other hand. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice firmer than I expected. Silence, just the sound of my own breathing and the occasional creak of the floorboards. As Lucas paced near the door, and then faintly, I heard it biffle, not outside, but inside in the hallway. My breath caught in my throat and I froze. Lucas barked again, his body pressed against the door as if he could sense something on the other side. My mind raced. Had I locked the front door before going to bed? I always did, didn't I? The sound came again, closer. This time it wasn't the wind. It was deliberate, so footstep I couldn't move. My legs felt like they were rooted to the floor. Lucas' growl turned into a snarl, his teeth bared as his hackles rose. Okay, I whispered to myself, trying to steady my breathing. It's probably nothing. Maybe the house settling. Maybe a raccoon got in, but deep down I knew better. Something was wrong, and Lucas knew it too. I stood frozen by the door, gripping the bat so tightly my knuckles ached. Lucas stayed pressed against the door, growling low and steady. I could hear my own heart beat in my ears, and every creak in the house felt amplified, each one setting my nerves on edge. Another shuffle came, louder, this time my breath hitched, and Lucas barked again. A sharp, angry warning. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, even though calm felt impossible. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob. Lucas' eyes darted to me, then back to the door like he was saying, "Don't do it." My fingers brushed the cold metal, but then I froze again when I heard it. A faint scratching sound like nails dragging against wood. It was coming from the other side of the door. "Who's there?" I yelled, my voice shaky, but loud enough to echo through the silence. No answer. Lucas barked furiously, his body tense and ready to lunge. I could feel his energy. He was ready to defend me, ready to fight whatever was out there. But the scratching stopped abruptly, replaced by a heavy silence that felt even worse. I backed away from the door, my flashlight flickering slightly as I aimed it toward the crack at the bottom. For a second, I thought I saw something, movement, a shadow shifting just out of view. No way," I muttered, trying to convince myself it was nothing, but the pit in my stomach said otherwise. Lucas suddenly turned away from the door, his nose in the air, sniffing furiously, his ears twitch, and then he bolted toward the living room. "Lucas, wait." I shouted, my voice cracking with panic. He didn't stop. His nails clicked against the floor as he disappeared into the dark hallway, barking wildly. I had no choice. I followed him, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. The flashlight barely cut through the darkness as I moved down the hall, gripping the bat so tightly my palms were sweating. Lucas' barking grew louder, more frantic, echoing off the walls. What is it, Lucas? What do you see? I called, desperate for any answer, even though I knew he couldn't give me one. When I reached the living room, Lucas was standing in front of the large window, his body rigid, his nose pressed to the glass. He barked and growled. But what stopped me in my tracks was the window itself. The curtains, which I'd closed before bed, were wide open. That's not possible. I whispered, my voice barely audible. I know I closed them. I always closed them. My flashlight's beam shook as I aimed it at the glass. But all I could see was the reflection of the room in Lucas' snarling face. The yard outside was pitch black. Nothing moved, nothing made a sound. Lucas suddenly whipped around, running toward the back door. I spun to follow him, my stomach twisting with fear. He barked and scratched at the door like he was trying to dig his way through it. I reached him and pointed the flashlight at the door half, expecting to see something or someone on the other side. But there was nothing. Lucas, stop. I begged, trying to pull him back. But then just as I started to turn away, I heard it again, a faint sound barely audible. It wasn't coming from outside this time. It was upstairs that I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Upstairs. That didn't make sense. Lucas was still scratching at the back door, but I could barely focus on him. The sound I'd just heard, it was soft, like a faint creak of a floorboard, but it was enough to send my mind racing. Someone was in the house. Lucas. I whispered, my voice trembling. He stopped barking and turned to look at me, his head tilting slightly, as if he could sense my fear. His ears perked up, and then without hesitation, he bolted toward the stairs. No, no, no. Lucas, stop. I called after him, but he was already halfway up, his nails clattering against the wooden steps. My feet felt glued to the floor. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to grab my keys, get out of the house and call for help. But I couldn't leave Lucas gripping the bat tightly. I forced myself to follow him. The flashlight shook in my hand, the narrow beam barely lighting the stairs in front of me. Each step creaked under my weight, and with every sound I felt like something or someone was about to jump out from the shadows. Lucas reached the top of the stairs and stopped abruptly, his body stiff and his head low. He let out a low growl, his gaze fixed on the door to my bedroom. I stopped a few steps behind him, struggling to steady my breathing. Lucas. Come here, I whispered, but he didn't move. His growl deepened, and then I heard it again, another creak, this time coming from inside my room. My heart felt like it might stop. I tightened my grip on the bat, every muscle in my body screaming to turn and run. But I couldn't leave Lucas. I took a shaky step forward, the beam of the flashlight landing on the bedroom door. It was open, just a crack, though I knew I'd closed it before going to bed. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it the wind, an animal that somehow got in Orono? I couldn't let myself think about that. Lucas inched closer to the door, his growl turning into a snarl. I followed him, my legs feeling like they might give out at any second. When I reached the door, I stopped, staring at the dark gap between the frame and the door. My hand trembled as I reached out, pushing it open slowly with the end of the bat. The door creaked loudly, the sound making my stomach churn. The flashlight beam swept across the room, revealing nothing but the usual clutter. My unmade bedclothes piled on the chair, a half-empty glass of water. On the nightstand, everything looked normal, but Lucas didn't relax. He darted into the room, his nose to the floor, sniffing furiously. He stopped near the bed, growling again, and I hesitated before stepping inside. What is it, boy? What do you smell? I whispered, my voice shaking. I aimed the flashlight under the bed half, expecting to see nothing. But what I saw made my blood run cold there. In the faint beam of light was a shoe, a muddy boot that didn't belong to me. My stomach dropped. Lucas barked, furiously lunging at the bed, and I stumbled back, barely able to keep my grip on the bat. Someone had been here, or worse, someone was still here. My C****** T felt tight as panic took over. I stumbled backward, unable to tear my eyes away from the boot under the bed. Lucas was growling and barking, pawing at the floor as though he was trying to dig through it. I didn't know what to do. My mind was screaming at me to get out of the room to grab Lucas and run, but my feet refused to move. Then I heard it, a sharp, sudden thud. It wasn't from under the bed. It came from the closet. My breath caught and the flashlight wavered in my hand as I turned toward the sound. The closet door was slightly ajar, just enough to reveal darkness inside. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. As my grip on the bat tightened, Lucas whipped around his body, teasing as he faced the closet. His bark was louder, now more urgent, like he knew the danger was just behind that door. "Stay back, Lucas," I whispered. Though my voice was barely audible over his barking, he didn't listen. He inched closer to the closet, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air. "Who's in there?" I yelled, my voice breaking. The room was dead silent except for Lucas' growls. I waited, holding my breath, but no one answered. My heart was racing so fast it felt like it might explode. Slowly, I raised the bat and stepped forward. Lucas stayed at my side, his body pressed against my leg, as if he was ready to defend me. The flashlight beam trembled as I aimed it at the closet door. My fingers were slick with sweat, and I had to fight the urge to just drop the bat and run. "Last chance. If you're in there, I'm calling the police," I shouted, my voice shaking, but firm, and nothing, just the heavy silence pressing down on me. I reached out with the bat, nudging the closet door open inch by inch. The hinges creaked loudly, making me flinch with each movement. Lucas barked furiously, lunging toward the open space. As soon as it was wide enough, I shone the flashlight into the closet, expecting the worst, someone crouching, waiting to lunge at me. But it was empty. Relief flooded through me for half a second. But then I noticed something. The closet wasn't entirely empty. On the floor, partially hidden behind a stack of boxes, was a muddy second boot. My throat tightened. Someone had been here. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from downstairs. I jumped, nearly dropping the flashlight. Lucas bolted out of the room, barking like his life depended on it. I didn't think, I just ran after him. The bat clutched in my hand as I barreled down the stairs. The living room was dark, but I could see the back door swinging open, the wind from outside, slamming it against the wall. I froze, trying to process what I was seeing. I knew I'd locked that door. I knew it. Lucas ran straight to the door, barking into the darkness beyond. "Hello," I shouted, my voice raw with fear. The wind whipped through the open door, but no one answered. I took a shaky step forward, my flashlight sweeping the yard, muffling just the empty darkness and the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. But Lucas wouldn't stop. He stood at the threshold, growling and barking, his fur standing on end. I couldn't see anything out there, but Lucas could. He knew. My hands trembled as I backed away from the door, pulling Lucas with me. My heart was racing so fast I could barely think straight. I locked the door again, double-checking it twice before grabbing my phone and dialing 850 and 10. I didn't care if they thought I was crazy. Someone had been in my house, and they could still be out there. As I waited for the dispatcher to pick up, I sat on the floor clutching Lucas and the bat like they were the only things keeping me safe. The police arrived within minutes, though it felt like hours. As I sat huddled on the floor with Lucas, he stayed close to me, his body still tense and alert. When I opened the door to let the officers in, Lucas barked at them, not out of aggression, but as if trying to warn them about the danger we just faced. 3 officers stepped inside, their flashlights cutting through the shadows as they surveyed the house. I explained everything in a rush, the strange noises, the open door, the boots, and the crash downstairs. My voice was shaky, and I could barely string the words together. But they listened carefully, nodding as they glanced between me and Lucas. "Stay here with your beautiful dog," one of them said, his tone calm but firm. "We'll check the house." Lucas growled softly as the officers moved past us, their flashlights casting long shadows on the walls. I clutched his collar, whispering, "It's okay, boy. They'll find whoever it was if they're still here." My stomach twisted at the thought. What if they were still here? The minutes dragged on as the officers searched every room. I could hear their footsteps upstairs, the creak of doors opening and closing, and the occasional murmur of their voices. Lucas stayed alert, his ears perked up, and his eyes fixed on the staircase. Finally they came back down, shaking their heads. "We didn't find anyone," the first officer said. But his expression was serious. "There's no sign of forced entry, but it's clear someone was here. The boots you mentioned. We saw them. We'll take them as evidence and dust for prints." I nodded, though my C****** T tightened with frustration and fear. But how could they just disappear? The door was open, but Lucas was barking so much. Wouldn't we have seen them running? The second officer glanced toward the backyard. "It's possible they ran into the woods. It's dark out there. They could have gotten away before we arrived. We'll send a patrol to check the area." I swallowed hard, the weight of it all sinking in. Someone had been in my house, hiding in my bedroom, and I had no idea how long they'd been there or what they wanted. The thought made my skin crawl. One of the officers knelt down to Lucas' level, giving him a small pat on the head. "Your beautiful dog's a good boy," he said with a faint smile. He probably scared them off before they could do anything worse. I looked at Lucas, my throat tightening. He wagged his tail slightly, but his eyes stayed focused on the door like he was still on guard. He's my hero," I said softly, stroking his fur. "The officers gave me instructions to lock all my windows and doors, and they promised to have someone patrol the area for the rest of the night. They left me with their card, urging me to call if I heard or saw anything else when they were gone." The silence in the house felt heavier than ever. I locked every door and window, checking each one twice with Lucas by my side. The whole time I couldn't bring myself to go back upstairs, so I grabbed a blanket and curled up on the couch, Lucas lying close to me. I kept the bat within reach, the police card on the coffee table, and my phone clutched in my hand. Lucas rested his head on my lap, his eyes still scanning the dark corners of the room. "You saved me tonight," I whispered, running my fingers through his fur. I don't even want to think about what could have happened if this story resonated with you. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us craft more engaging stories for you.